Became the longest-serving member of Congress in history, a record of 57 years, 5 months, and 26 days, more than 1/4 of the years that Congress has existed. That is our Face the Nation flashback.
So happy God.
Dingell came to Congress in 1955 when Dwight Eisenhower was president. I want to ask you a little bit about, as you look back on those years, how many presidents?
11 presidents and 11 speakers I served with, not under.
You will notice I did not say that you served under.
I knew you're a wise head, but some folks do.
As you look back on it, who were your favorites?
Well, if you look, you'll see there's a picture signed to John Dingell. Franklin Delano Roosevelt. I didn't serve with him, but he was to me right after God. He'd speak, if you'll remember, to the fireside chats.
What has been done in the last...
And everything in the country stopped. People wanted to listen to him. And he had that wonderful speaking style. And after him, I think Truman, who was an extraordinary guy who had the remarkable ability to simplify enormously complex questions into a simple yes or no.
And what about LBJ?
He was a tremendous president. There's only one thing that destroyed LBJ, and that was Vietnam. And probably at the bottom of that was his ego, because he was, I think, very much afraid that people were going to say, who lost Vietnam? Johnson didn't know how to defend against that, so he stayed and kept raising the ante in Vietnam and cost us a huge number of lives and an awful lot of money.
But he also passed the civil rights bills.
That was, I think, one of the great pieces of legislation in history, because we eliminated discrimination against deserving, decent American people. I almost lost an election over that. And I had to go around and say, now, I want you to explain to me why it is that a black man or woman should not be able to vote if they're a citizen, when an American who happens to be a white man or woman can vote. And the people responded.
But you know, when you look back in those days, those were the days of these great across-the-aisle relationships. I mean, I don't think there's any question Lyndon Johnson could not have passed that without Everett Dirksen, the Republican leader.
You're a wise man, my friend Bob. The answer is he could not. And the interesting thing is that Dirksen and LBJ talked. They're friends. You don't find that now. And it is hurting the institution, it's hurting the country, it's hurting the Congress. And it's keeping us from making progress, because now everybody thinks we got to fight. They send you down here to fight, and the media sends you down here to fight, and they put the 5, 10, 15-second sound bites on where people are denouncing somebody or saying something bad about somebody. And now we have a situation where people will shout at the president during State of the Union message, liar, or call a member of his White House press staff paid liar. You know, that's not the way this should be done.
Do you think that you could pass the 1964 Civil Rights Bill today?
I said the other day, I wasn't sure we could pass the 10 Commandments in this place. Money has become a curse in this place because everybody's chasing money all the time. And the result, and that's true in the Senate too, and the result of this is that the place is simply locked up. And we have people who come in here that don't have the vaguest idea how the place works. They don't know where the restroom is, but all of a sudden they're on the floor making a great big speech, and they're talking to their press manager about what's the statement they're going to issue today, and when they ought to be sitting down and talking with the other side and working out the problems that we confront.
His proudest moment was the vote he cast for that 1964 Civil Rights Bill. His greatest regret?
There's one vote that I have regretted ever since I made it, and that was the vote I made on the Gulf of Tonkin resolution.
That is the resolution that gave Lyndon Johnson the green light to go to Vietnam.
I went over to the floor. I got there late. I was going to vote against it, and I got to thinking, Lyndon Johnson's the president. I'm going to help him to do what he thinks ought to be done. Well, it turned out that the information that he had, that we had about that, was wrong. And it committed us to Vietnam, which cost us thousands of American lives, untold treasure, vast ill will, which hurt generations of Americans, particularly the guys who went over there honorably to serve their nation. That's what I'm sorry about. But it was one that taught me something, so that when the second Bush wanted to go into Iraq, I voted against it because I thought that was a dumb thing, and I didn't think they had the basis for it.
What was your favorite time here?
The first year I was here because I didn't have anything really important to do. I was just a freshman. All I had to do was to look around and act important. And that's easy to do. It doesn't take much intelligence. And then when Lyndon Johnson came, because we began to realize all the things that we wanted to do. Medicare, which my dad was the first author, and which I had introduced every year since, and where I got to preside over the House when we passed Medicare. I've still got the gavel sitting over yonder.
Will Dingell run again? He says he and his wife Debbie will make that decision in January, as they always do in an election year. Our Face the Nation flashback.
The Monday morning quarterback on the 17th of June, 2013. Boston Red here. We had an exciting game in San Antonio on Sunday night. So thus we'll get to it very, very quickly here. The final score was 104, the Heat, and San Antonio 114. Manager Ginobili, no doubt, was the spark plug that started this the proverbial engine. He had 24 points, 10 assists. He actually started the game, a little different strategy they had. Tony Parker had 26 points, Tim Duncan 17 points and 12 rebounds. And a look at a little bit of this. Miami, Dwayne Wade, 25 points. And let's see, who did we have here? LeVar James, 6 rebounds. Dwayne Wade, 10 assists. LeVar James, 4 steals. And Dwayne Wade, 2 blocks. That's just some of the things going on here. But the 3-point range, that was Mr. Green. He actually was able to break a record here with his 3-point shooting. So it was a different game. The series will return to Florida, and on Tuesday night we'll see what happened. The last team evidently at 2-2, a game tied at 2-2, to win was the Los Angeles Lakers in 2010. So it was a little different kind of situation. Finals have been tied 2-2. The fifth game winner has won 20 of them. So that sort of tells you a little bit of what's going on here in terms of the numbers there. San Antonio shot 42 of 70, right at about 60%. The last team to make 60% of the shots in the final was Orlando. And of course the Lakers were in the hunt there, as the Lakers are always in the hunt. So this was an interesting game, but where does it go from here? It just basically goes. A quick look here, a little quick look here at the Heat clutch statistics match in Spurs strategy. This is by Nate Silver. The Heat were heavy bet favorites. We'll have to see where the betting is going. Despite the computer rankings that show the team to be relatively even, there's no doubt this has been a relatively even thing. These blowout games, high-scoring games going on here. The Heat won more regular games during the regular season, 66 to San Antonio's 58. I would kind of discount that as going on there. But the Heat did get home court advantage. That's probably the only thing literally keeping them in there. The Heat's critical record in situations, regular games, extraordinary. The NBA keeps statistics on what it calls clutch time performances, when it defines as a situation in 5 minutes of the game when the score is within 5 points or less. It represents 176 total minutes of play. The Heat outscored their opponent 427 to 296. But when you're down as they were, that's usually not going to have this equivalent of beating an opponent by 116 to 180 per 48 minutes length of games. So that in itself, stat geeks are like Silver default towards skepticism about the notion that certain teams or athletes perform well in the clutch. Well, there's some statistics there to look at that. When B said he went back to the regular season and estimated probabilities that each team would win each game based upon the team's power ratings and which team had home court advantage. I then identified games that projected to be the most competitive. From those, neither team was better than a 2 in 3 chance, or worse, 1 in 3 chance. The case represents a rough equivalent of games in which neither team would be favored by more than 4 points. Didn't happen here. He played in 21 such games during the regular season, essentially were the toughest games on their schedule. In San Antonio, home games were the very best team in there in the Western Conference. A road game in Oklahoma City in February. The Heat were assigned less than 1 in 3 chance of winning, according to the formula. And then he goes on here. We won't go into it because we're moving on. How did the Heat go into these games? They were 14-7, winning 2/3 of the time. That reflects the best winning percentage in the league in games that seem like even matches on paper. Miami usually outscores their opponents by 3.3 points. It wouldn't help in this case. So, needless, the evidence is consistent with the notion that the Heat was saving its best performance for when it had the most to gain and most to lose. Well, we didn't see that tonight. So why has the Heat performance carried forward in the playoffs? Actually, the Heat was doing very fine till Spurs. Some teams don't play other teams as well. The Spurs do not perform especially well in even straight matchups during the regular season. 13 for 14 in these games. However, under coach Popovich, he's been around a long time. The Spurs take the notion of timing their players' performance to the extreme, resting their veteran players whenever they can during regular games to preserve their fitness. In fact, they were fined by Commissioner David Stern. Tim Duncan, for example, averages 25 minutes per game during the regular season, accounting for the fact that he set out 13 entire games. Tony Parker's minutes have increased to 36 per game from 27, and Mr. Ginobili is playing 25 minutes per game instead of 17. Although my big Miami 3, that's LeBron James, Wade, and Bosh, are playing more minutes per game than the regulars. One of the theories here, Miami may be, as they say, just simply tired. If Miami loses the series, they're sure to be questioned about whether the Heat burn themselves out during the regular season, but Miami may even be good at their 66-16 record implies. Perhaps even better in key games. The Spurs, however, are practically a whole different team during the postseason. That's what you want, based upon Johnny Hoopling's wins add statistics. I want to estimate that the game time allocations the Spurs are using in the playoffs make them the equivalent of 14 wins stronger than their record suggests, tantamount to adding a star player like Blake Griffin to that lineup, who needs more crunch players when you have Popovich's clutch strategy. So there's some of the things going on here in terms of The minutes, he breaks those down for like Tim Duncan. The season he paid 25.5